Is that the only reason I'm upset? No. I am upset, not even because no one got in. I think that would be an easy thing to jump to. I've seen that a lot today. I think some people should have gotten in, but I'm not irritated just because no one did. That's happened before. That's part of the process. And however you feel about the process, I can accept it if that's the process we've come up with baseball, the writers, whatever. I think it's a little bit flawed. I think it has some issues, mainly the issues we're seeing right now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there are 14 people that have driven me crazy today. There are 14 people that turned in ballots that were blank. They did not have one person selected. The reason I am aggravated is because in a typical year where no one gets voted in, it is not that you see that. You don't see this. It's about 3.5% of the voters that just don't vote. You don't see that a lot. Ronnie, I'm going to get that in a few minutes. But you don't see that on these years. This is a protest from the baseball writers directed at Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, we'll throw him in there too, and any other steroid user. I hate to throw Curt Schilling in that list, but he's certainly included in the list that this is a protest over. But Curt Schilling should have been in the Hall of Fame. Not based on his tweets, not based on his social media, based on his numbers. And I know that in baseball, there's a different standard of how we conduct ourselves, outside of the baseball field. You can have that debate with me. I'm okay with that. What irritates me is not the steroid users. It's not Andruw Jones. It's not Curt Schilling. It's not anything like that. What irritates me is the fact that you mean to tell me that out of those 20, 30 guys, you couldn't find one that was a Hall of Famer? Because on the Brave side of things, because that's my audience, that's my thought process, Andruw Jones had a decade of Gold Gloves, had 434 homers. I don't know what else you need. If no one else can give you a vote, he can. And of course, there's others: Todd Helton, Jeff Kent. No steroids, to my knowledge. No steroids to anyone else's knowledge. And they have respectable numbers. My problem is this: if you want to punish the steroid users, I don't fully support that. I think it's time, but I understand that. I get that argument. I once shared that attitude. That does not bother me. What does bother me is that if you're going to punish these guys, if you're not going to let them in the Hall of Fame, if you're going to push them to the Veterans Committee, like Curt Schilling decided to do today, you need to reward the guys that did it the right way and had respectable careers. Fred McGriff comes to mind, a guy that was overlooked partly because he was on multiple teams, but also a big reason because he was surrounded by guys who were on the juice. And there's no doubt about it. He had 30 homers every year. Crime Dog should be in the Hall of Fame right now. Should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago. But yet, we sit here, and there's more than him. There's a lot of guys out there in the same situation. And it irritates me because you have one of the best center fielders ever sitting on the ballot for 4 years. Because we're irritated with the steroid users and Curt Schilling. I don't buy that. I think that is a disgrace. I think it is disrespectful to the guys who put at least 10 years, probably more, into the Hall of Fame. And Andruw specifically, a lot of people, when they bring up Andruw, y'all know I got a lot of love for Andruw. I want him to go in the Hall of Fame. I interviewed him. He's a nice guy. That's certainly part of why I like him so much. But also, his numbers are there. His defense is there. And also, he's an ambassador for baseball. Guys putting on clinics in Curacao to bring up kids to play baseball in another country, his home country. Okay? The guy means the world of baseball. And I know it's a different stat line. I know it's a different number. The guy has a better fielding percentage than Willie Mays. And I know it's different, but that puts him on the same category. Okay, he's one of the best ever in his position. And if you want to talk about time put in, maybe he didn't play long enough, maybe he fell off in his career, let me introduce you to a guy named Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax, I believe, played for 9 years, which would not qualify him for the Hall of Fame right now. One of the best pitchers in baseball history would not qualify. Okay? With that same attitude, 4 of those were rocky years. He finally got into his stride and had some of the best years of his career. With that said, Andruw Jones played far beyond that, had more successful years, and if defense is so underrated in today's game, it just is, and it's always been underrated. There is no stat that fully represents. There is no, you have fielding percentage, sure, but there is no there is no stat cast. There is no batting average. There is no RBIs. You don't have that with defense, so it's just overlooked. Andruw Jones is one of the best defensive players ever, not just in his position, in any position. Okay? If that was represented in a batting average, he would be in the Hall of Fame right now. That's what's irritating me in that case. But I'm going to leave that alone. The writers out here are doing this, and it irritates me because it's so much of overlooking the fans that it's disgusting. It's disrespectful to the players who put the time in, who worked their tails off to get into the Hall of Fame. It is disrespectful to the fans who watch the sport, who watch these guys come up, play every day, and enjoy the sport in itself. And it's disrespectful to the sport itself. And I think it is an abomination. The fans own the game. And if you ask any given fan how they feel about this, I guarantee you they're going to feel the same exact way. It is so irritating that... Here's why. These 14 guys that didn't decide to elect anyone into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year, are they not going to elect anybody next year except the new guys that come in, maybe? Are they going to be able to be in the Hall of Fame? Is that what this is going to be? Because I don't think you should be allowed to vote for any of the guys you didn't vote for the year prior. Are they Hall of Famers or are they not? And my question to you is, do you deserve a vote? I mean, because your voice isn't being heard. If you just vote for one guy, I shut up. But to send in a blank ballot is disrespectful. And every article I've read from one of these guys saying that there's one titled out there that says why I sent in a blank ballot. So I made sure I read it so I could be educated on why he chose the way he did. And I don't fully disagree with some of the points he made, but he failed in two ways. He failed to completely cover the bases. Okay, he started with Curt Schilling, said he had a little bit of problems with some of the things out there, and didn't think his conduct represented the Hall of Fame. Okay, I don't fully agree, but okay, I can look past that. He got to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Of course, the steroids make him, avoid that. And we'll just include Gary Sheffield in that list. He immediately skips to Mark Burley, Tim Hudson, and A.J. Burnett. Did not mention anyone else on the ballot. Okay? I love Tim Hudson as much as the next Braves fan, but obviously Tim Hudson was not going in this year. You failed to mention four guys I can think on top of my head right now. Of course, Andruw. We'll include Gary Sheffield, even though I know he had steroid ties. Gary Sheffield, Todd Helton, Jeff Kent. Okay? Didn't even mention them. Those are the guys that are in the middle of the road that if you're not going to reward... If you don't want to reward the steroid users, okay, but you need to get on one of these guys, at least one. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them belong in the Hall of Fame. But if you can't pick one, maybe you don't need a vote. That's the way I feel about it. I don't know how you guys feel. I hope you feel the same way. But I have been irritated all day long with this. I think this is a disgrace to the sport and to the Hall of Fame. And, a lot of the conversation has been, I don't want to water down the Hall. I don't want to cheapen the Hall. And this is a big disconnect between the baseball writers of America and MLB fans. That has been something going on for some years now. Larry Walker, who's a guy that for the Rockies, who if you ask any Rockies fan, they feel the same way I do about him that I do about Andruw Jones with Larry Walker. He belonged in the Hall of Fame years before he got in. And everybody makes a deal about first ballot Hall of Famer. A guy that I knew recently, Phil Necro, didn't go into, I believe, his 5th or 6th year. He's still remembered as a Hall of Famer. Every last one of these guys who got inducted later in his career is still remembered as a Hall of Famer, as they should be. This whole idea that if you're not first ballot, you're irrelevant, it's stupid because it's irrelevant 2 years later. Chipper Jones, of course, went in first ballot. Mariano Rivera, unanimous. They're all on the same platform. So what's the difference in voting for a guy this year than voting for a guy next year? Andruw Jones is just going to be just as much of a Hall of Famer next year as he would be this year. Todd Helton, just as much next year as he would be this year. Barry Bonds, hate to say it, just as much next year as he will this year. It irritates me to my core. And I can't tell you, I have been literally thinking about this all day long. I'm glad I didn't watch the show last night because it would have kept me up all night long. And I understand. I don't disagree with the steroid argument. I don't mind that necessarily. I don't agree completely, but I understand the argument. I know it's an older generation kind of thing. And to be honest with you, I used to have it too. I'm a Braves guy. Hank Aaron is the home run king in my opinion. But you cannot deny how good Barry Bonds is. You can't deny how good Rogers Clemens was. You just can't. And I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Okay, I've walked through the halls. I've walked through the museum. Those guys are all over Cooperstown. They're just not in the hall. So I think that says a lot. Pete Rose is an entirely different thing to get through. I think that's a joke. I think it's a joke that frankly, consider him the legit one or not, the home run leader and the hit leader are both not in the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe Jackson is not in the Hall of Fame. We can go all day long. I think it's a crying shame, again, that Fred McGriff is not in the Hall of Fame. You can make an argument for Dale Murphy. I think that's a very reasonable argument. And there's more. There's plenty more out there that I'm not going to cover. I'm not going to be able to go through. The process is flawed. I'm not going to tell you how flawed I think it is, but it is flawed. Every year there's going to be disagreements, and it's just public opinion. It's almost like it's an election. You're going to have difference of opinion on who should get in, who should not. But the fact that no one goes in, to me, should never happen because, frankly, there's too many good people, there's too many great players, there's out there in history books to not put anyone in. And I'm sure the Veterans Committee may come in and put someone in this year. But the fact that we can't, I say we, the writers can't, mutually agree that one person should go in the Hall of Fame, it makes me, I get we need to have a cutoff. There has to be a cutoff. I am not for electing everyone into the Hall of Fame. But to elect no one is ridiculous. I'm going to get into some of your comments in a minute. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. I'm sure you guys have been thinking about it today. I talked to Andruw a couple years ago. I interviewed him, and of course the Hall of Fame came up, and I went back and watched that today. I asked him how much it would mean to him to be in the Hall of Fame. Of course, he said it'd be a great honor, but ironically, the funny thing about it is he said it's up to the writers. And if it happens, it happens. And how fitting that is right now. And I know I keep harping on Andruw, and of course that would have made my day if he had made it in. But this is ridiculous all the way around. All the way around. Todd Helton is a guy that can easily go in any year. He's on the ballot, Veterans Committee, whatever. And that's just what it is. Curt Schilling, I thought, had the best chance. And the fact that, his quote-unquote conduct kept him out is a shame. I really thought that they were going to go ahead and let steroid users in. I really did, because why not? And maybe it's because I watched MLB Network today. Don't know if any of you saw it. It could be because, they didn't want him to share the stage with Derek Jeter. Maybe. But I think that is all right, fine. Next year, different story. Maybe they go in by themselves. And it is what it is. But to not elect one person, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. That's the best word I can use. All right. What would your ballot look like if you had one? I got 10. I'd have to look up the ballot to make sure I include everyone here. I did not make one, per se. Andruw would be on it, I can tell you that. Barry Bonds would be on it. Roger Clemens would be on it. That would be 3. And then I'd probably go... I didn't even mention Billy Wagner. Billy Wagner's another one. Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, Jeff Kent, and I'd have to look further. I might give Huddy a vote just because I'm a Braves guy and I don't matter right now. But, I would try to keep it reasonable. And honestly, I'd probably vote Huddy to keep him on the ballot for a couple more years. But that would probably be where I go. And I'd probably vote Schilling, honestly, just because... we can talk about his conduct all day long. Go watch the 2004 Red Sox documentary. Okay, go watch the Bloody Sock game. Go watch 2001, his postseason there. There's a lot of things we can talk about with Curt Schilling. His numbers speak for themselves, but the moments are a lot better. Dude was a postseason beast. Okay, and there's been a lot worse guys to make it in the Hall of Fame. Guys that have done far worse than some tweets. That's kind of the way I feel about it. All right. Tyler will have a ballot one day. I'm thinking, I hope so. Because otherwise I can't really voice my opinion except right here. The Hall of Fame is starting to become a joke for me. Andruw Jones deserves to be in there. He is my favorite Braves player ever. That's what I'm saying there, Mr. Knight. I don't know your first name. I can't say it. But that's what I'm saying here. It's not so much that Andruw Jones didn't go in. The fact that there's been this detachment from the Writers Association for some years now, with the Hall of Fame, with just the media in general, has been split in a lot of ways. But the fact that no one goes in, and there's plenty of guys on the ballot that can make it in, irritates me. You can't find one guy to mutually circle, make a mark next to. But the people that irk me to death, the reason that it's a joke is not the process. If it was just the process and no one got enough votes, which honestly could have happened this year. I think Schilling needed 16 votes, and there were 14 people to send in blank ballots, so it probably would have still happened. But if you're a Hall of Fame voter and you send in a blank ballot, I honestly question how much importance you think that has. How much of a responsibility you consider that. I consider it a fundamental part of the history of the game. I consider it, I honestly consider it one of the best parts about the game is the Hall of Fame. If you've never been there, I suggest you go. But the fact that we're sitting here debating over a stat line because he didn't play long enough compared to a steroid user, but we're not going to reward the steroid user, at some point you got to make a decision. And either let everyone in, or let the steroid users in, whatever you want to do, or say, okay, steroid users, you're not going in, but you guys that did it right, we're going to reward you. That would be Fred McGriff, hopefully in the Veterans Committee, Andruw Jones, Todd Helton, Jeff Kent, Larry Walker, if he hadn't made it in last year. I think it's ridiculous. I really do. The guy that I saw, the article that really made me upset, was an article I actually saw 2 or 3 days ago, and it was a guy, I believe in Pittsburgh, can't tell you his name, don't know it, but he titled the article, why I'm sending in a blank ballot, and the fact that he skipped over 6 or 7 names that were important really says a lot about how much he thought about it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Schilling might have made it if he hadn't said that stuff a few days ago. He screwed himself in the end. As much as I agree with you because of the circumstances of the Writers Association, I don't agree. It's not over. Either he wants to defer himself to the Veterans Committee. I hope that goes through. I would like to see him go in personally because I think he deserves to be in. The numbers are there, and I will stand by that. There are a lot, like I said, there are a lot worse guys in the Hall of Fame. As much as I hate to say that, it's true. Big Papi next year.